Welcome back to True North Sports Talk Podcast, sports fans. It's Peter Barclay here, as always, and we are always covering the biggest sports stories north of the border here. And yeah, it is officially playoff season. So we are going to be talking playoffs in two different sports today. We are going to be talking about what the heck happened to the Toronto Blue Jays, including a rant on Jeff Hoffman and John Schneider. And yeah, so we got NBA playoffs kicked off yesterday. I watched most of one of those games. We had a full slate. We got Stanley Cup playoffs that got underway yesterday. So we'll talk about what happened there. We'll talk about some upcoming games today. And for those of you just tuning in as this is being dropped and not the live, um, this will have happened. You'll know already, and there may be some other games before this drops. Anywho, we will get through all of that. We're trying not to waste a single second, so we're going to recap game one of the NBA round one, and there were some huge storylines already coming out of those games. We'll move over to the NHL. We'll break down game one results there and let you know all of what's going on. And then we will turn our attention to those Blue Jays. And yikes, what a dismal start it has been for them. And we'll try and be as nice as possible, but they are a complete disaster to start the season. We'll do a full injury update and we'll talk about what we think can happen in order to fix this team. So we got a lot of ground to cover. Hopefully I'll keep it to the hour. Hopefully I won't rant too long on that one situation. But here we go. Let's kick it off. We said we'll start with the 2026 NBA playoffs that kicked off on Saturday, April 18th, with 4 game ones. And there were 4 more on Sunday. We are recording this before some of those games that are taking place. So we'll have complete results from day one and we'll preview what's tipping off likely around or as we speak here. So the Eastern Conference, Saturday, April 18th, game one between the New York Knickerbockers and the Atlanta Hawks. This was a series that, going into it, looked like it would be closely contested. Now, 11-point differential in game one might not seem closely contested, but in today's NBA, that's a couple of threes and a two away from. So it's not unheard of. I mean, Tracy McGrady scored, 13 points in 9 seconds at one point? It's not unheard of. But New York came out exactly like a team that has been there before. You have Jalen Brunson, who has been there before, 28 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. That's a Jalen Brunson line. You got Karl Anthony Towns, who continued to be a nightmare on whatever front court he's playing against. Happened to be Atlanta's this time. He had 25 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists to go along with 3 blocked shots. Now here's the tough one for Raptors fans. OG Anunoby. Wouldn't he have looked good on the perimeter for the Raptors yesterday? Man, 18 points, and as usual, was the defensive stopper that our Raptors could have used yesterday, but he did that for the Knicks. At one point, the Knicks were up 19 in the fourth quarter. So the 113-102 margin might be a little wider than it seemed. The Hawks made a late run. They cut it to 8, and New York closed it out again 113-102. That meaning the Knicks now lead the series 1-0. Atlanta's issue throughout the game was Jalen Johnson. For whatever reason, he just could not get it going. First time he's experienced all of this playoff intensity. First time he's done it as the main focus of an offense. And you could see that he was kind of carrying that burden a little bit at times. Trae Young no longer there. So that means the Atlanta Hawks had to figure it out without that caliber of a player. So if Atlanta's going to need to make a series of this, then Johnson needs to be far more assertive and efficient going into game 2. Now the next game 1 we're going to talk about is the one us up here north of the border we were looking most forward to, as our Toronto Raptors, the 5 seed, were taking on the 4 seed Cleveland Cavaliers. And so we were all watching this game yesterday, myself included. And the Raptors went 3-0 against Cleveland in the regular season. However, that was sans James Harden. So this was a completely different looking team going into the series. Toronto was without one of its major contributors in Immanuel Quickley, as he was out, so they were missing 16, 5, and 5 or something like that. Throughout this game, you had Ingram not looking like himself. He only took, 8 shots, 9 shots? For him, that's not nearly enough. He was not assertive enough on either end of the floor. You could see the whistle at times was tilted against the Raptors. I mean, you got James Harden. I mean, I was sitting there watching with someone, and both sides of the ball, I'm like, that's a foul, that's a foul, that's a turnover, that's a turnover, because they were not calling moving screens whatsoever, which they don't in the NBA anymore. They don't call palming the ball. They don't call travels. You have all these justifications about gather steps and this, that, and the other, which is all nonsense, by the way. Like all this gather step and step back and all this stuff that James Harden does and consequently everyone else does, that whole Euro step from Manu Ginobili and whatever, these are all travels. If you go back to the actual rule book and how games used to be called, and this happened in the New York series, guaranteed. The next series we're talking about, it happened. There's a lot of things that didn't get called that should have been. And that kind of tilts the floor a little bit, which means Scotty Barnes had 2 fouls very quickly when he shouldn't have. And you didn't really see that on certain other players that it should have happened. The Raptors went into Cleveland again, having won the series 3-0. Those 3 wins were by double digits. So this one had possibilities for upsets. Now, Jake Allen, their big man in the middle, I mean, he wreaked all kind of havoc. Mobley, trying to remember his first name, because I'm from the days of Catino Mobley, but I know it's not him. I don't have his name here, but he wreaked havoc on the 4-5-2, which is what got Scotty Barnes in trouble. Brandon Ingram just has no interest in playing actual defense. So, yeah, Cleveland played like a team that remembered what it means to win when it counts. I mean, Donovan Mitchell was locked in. 32 points. This made him the first player in NBA history to score at least 30 points in 9 consecutive game ones. So you knew he was coming with a big game. That's a bit of an astonishing stat considering Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Tracy McGrady. I mean, there's a long list of guys there. Bill Russell, Dr. J, Rick Barry. None of those guys have actually done that, so that's very, very surprising. You add James Harden to the story, as he came in just before the trade deadline. This was his first playoff performance in the Cavaliers uniform. He had 22 points and 10 assists. Max Strus was an X factor. You had D Wade. And Cleveland was able to shoot 54% from the field, 50% from three. What the heck? And they were nearly perfect from the free throw line. And the Raptors struggled from the free throw line. That's a strange thing, especially Brandon Ingram missing 2 at one point as an 85% shooter. So there were some discrepancies there that the Raptors definitely have to clean up for game 2. Scotty Barnes has to stay out of foul trouble. Jakob Poeltl has to show up and play defense on Jarrett Allen. And yeah, they just need an all-around better performance. The Raptors weren't horrible, but RJ Barrett quietly led Toronto with 24 points. Scotty Barnes had 21 and 7 assists. I mean, Brandon Ingram contributed, but not the way you need him to. But in that third quarter, Cleveland outscored them 36-22, and that was your difference in the game. The Raptors definitely need to make adjustments before game 2 on Monday. And for us fans up here north of the border, the message is simple. The regular season don't mean nothing in the playoffs. This is a new team with the addition of Harden. You know Mitchell's going to be Mitchell. And when they're in playoff mode, this is a completely different animal. The Raptors have the athleticism and the depth to adjust, but they need the guys that got them there to step up. Jacoby Murphy, I want to say. Some of those secondary guys just kind of disappeared yesterday, and they really need those guys to show up. Scotty Barnes needs to take this moment, and he needs to step up and really put his stamp on this series. He needs to go toe-to-toe with either James Harden or Donovan Mitchell, both defensively, and he needs to tear them up offensively, a la Allen Iverson, Vince Carter back in the day. And he really needs to show that he is the superstar on this team. The Western Conference had some games yesterday. You had the Denver Nuggets taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And this is probably going to be the most beastly series in the first round. This has got like conference finals written all over it, this type of series. You know, Ant-Man's going to want to do his thing. You got Jokic and Murray on the other side wanting to do theirs. And in the West, this is the series that everyone is going to be looking at. These two teams, they know each other probably better than any recent rivalry in NBA history. They've played each other 28 times since the start of the 22-23 season. And heading into game one, it was 14-14 until yesterday. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray just basically said, all right, we've been to the championship, we've won it together, we're just going to do our thing. They combined for 55 points, 18 rebounds, 18 assists. Jokic had 25, 13, and 11. Yet another triple-double in his belt. He's kind of made himself out to be Russell Westbrook-ish in the terms of triple-doubles. Probably not quite as good at them, but for a big man, that's pretty darn good. No one really expected anything otherwise. Murray was brilliant, scoring a game-high 30, going 16-16 from the free throw line. That's very necessary for that team. Minnesota started well. They led by 12 in the first quarter, behind a big opening from Jaden McDaniels, and the game was tied at halftime. Coming out of halftime, Denver went on a 17-2 run in the third quarter, and that basically turned the tide of the game. The Wolves cut it to 5 with about 3 minutes left in the quarter, or in the game, sorry. And then Jokic and Murray did what they do, ran a beauty of a two-man game to close it out, putting Denver up 1-0. Anthony Edwards had 22. Gobert was probably Minnesota's best player with 17 on 8 of 9 shooting. Julius Randle was horrible, which seems to be a theme since he left New York. He started 3 for 11, never really found a rhythm. And that's the story of this series so far for Minnesota. Julius Randle needs to be exponentially better. Probably the best way to say that. He needs to be a difference maker. And he just wasn't that in game one. All right, so the Los Angeles Lakers, they made some history in game one against the Houston Rockets and our buddy Fred VanVleet. This game was the first, but sorry, how am I going to say this? Okay, this the game one of the entire. Yeah, that makes no sense. So, again, this game with the Lakers was history making because of what happened in the second quarter of this game. And knowing it's the Lakers, you might guess where I'm going with this. LeBron James and Bronny James, yes, he's still there somehow, some way, became the first father and son duo in NBA history to play together in a playoff game. We know it's happened in the regular season. The Lakers haven't been making the playoffs since they drafted Bronny. But let that sink in for a moment. LeBron won his first playoff game like 20 years ago. I think it was more than that. But Bronny wasn't even 1 year old when that happened. 20 years later, LeBron's mom, so for Bronny, that's grandma, sat in the stands at Crypto.com Arena and watched her son and her grandson play in the same postseason game. LeBron described it post-game as, we're paraphrasing here, probably the craziest thing that's ever happened to him in his career. He said, I was on the floor with my son in a playoff game. That is just insane. Bronny played 4 minutes in the second quarter, and the two were on the floor together. Modest statistical contribution, as you might imagine. But they say enormous symbolic weight. None of this would have been possible if the Lakers weren't in a crisis because both Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves are out. Luka with a hamstring, Reeves with an oblique. Kevin Durant also missed the game for Houston with a knee contusion that he suffered in practice. So both teams were a little bit short-handed. Question was who was going to be stepping up for both teams. Luke Kennard, a midseason acquisition from Atlanta. Kennard erupted for 27 points on 5 of 5 from 3. That's the second highest point total in a Lakers postseason debut in team history. LeBron himself had 19 points, 8 rebounds, 13 assists. His 13 assists made him the first player age 41 or older to record points and assists double-double in a playoff game. DeAndre Ayton added 19 points, 11 rebounds. For Houston, even without Durant, 5 players scored 15 or more. Alperen Sengun had 19, Amen Thompson 17, Reed Shepherd 17, Tari Eason 16, and Jabari Smith Jr. had 16. The Rockets aren't going away easily, but the Lakers have the edge now with a 1-0 series lead. If Doncic gets back even at 70%, say, for Game 2, this series could shift dramatically. However, if Kevin Durant can come back, do they cancel each other out? Now, Day 2 game previews. We got 4 massive Game 1s happening. Some of them have already started. You have Boston versus Philadelphia. That's a 2 versus 7. This is 116th all-time playoff meeting between these two franchises. The most between any two teams in NBA history. That's even more than Celtics-Lakers. Jason Tatum is back from injury for Boston. Tyrese Maxey and the Sixers got the 7 seed after coming through the play-in. So they're already battle-hardened in playoff atmosphere. So we'll see how the Celtics respond. They were 56-26 this season. The Celtics are the heavy favorites. So let's see how quickly Tatum and Brown can shake off any kind of rust and get this Celtics team rolling. Then you have the Oklahoma City Thunder, the defending champs, taking on the Phoenix Suns. At home, Oklahoma went 64-18 this season. That was the best record in the NBA for the second consecutive year. As always, you know the whistle's tilted toward them, not away from them. Based on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's the guy that makes them go. You have the Suns, they snuck through the play-in, and most of observers think this is a mismatch, but Phoenix has some weapons. And yeah, Victor Wembanyama is not in this series, so that's one guy neither team has to worry about. In the West, though, that's a guy you got to worry about. The Thunder face the Suns, knowing that any stumble will be treated as a massive upset. Then you have the Detroit Pistons and Orlando Magic. The Pistons, I would almost say shockingly, finished 60-22. They earned the Eastern Conference's top seed. This is a franchise that has been floundering for years, but is in full bloom at the moment. The Magic earned the 8th seed again through the play-in. They defeated the Charlotte Hornets, Cade Cunningham against Franz Wagner. That is must-watch basketball. Then the night game, you have the Spurs and said Victor Wembanyama versus the Portland Trailblazers. This is Wembanyama's first career playoff series. The 22-year-old phenom who has the Spurs at 62-20 this season. That's the second best record in the entire NBA behind the Oklahoma City Thunder. They face a Portland team that really kind of like the Pistons. No one really expected them to be where they are. They got through the play-in, but you're gonna run into a bit of a buzzsaw with Wembanyama. So that is your must-see TV for the day. Alright, so we had some Game 1 results in the NHL. Switching gears here. And they started on April 18th as well. And there's more action happening as well today. So let's go through the Game 1s. There is quite a bit of Canadian content going on. We have 3 teams in the playoffs this year. First, and before we get into the results, for Ontario fans, Southern Ontario to be particular, there's a bit of an elephant in the room. One of those Canadian teams is not the Toronto Maple Leafs. They missed the playoffs for the first time in a decade. Certainly the first time in the Auston Matthews era. So, yeah, that's a bit of a reality check for a team that seemingly traded away the heart and the soul of the team and got nothing in return. The Leafs fired Brad Treliving late in the season. There's a rebuild conversation going on. Will Berube be back? Who's going to be the next guy? I've heard whispers recently, well, Sonny Mehta was hired by the New Jersey Devils. We covered that on our shorts during the week, so that's one name off the list. But a new name that's popped up will be interesting to Leaf fans in that one Matt Sundin has apparently had some conversations about some kind of role in the new front office, and that would be interesting. The former captain of the Leafs. I mean, he's had other roles in front offices before, so it wouldn't be too much of a stretch that maybe they bring him in a la Brendan Shanahan. And again, the whole Brad Treliving thing, we did a previous episode about that, so we've covered quite a bit of it. It's just strange, and for Leaf fans, it's sad to watch the Stanley Cup playoffs begin without their team. We still have Ottawa, we still have Montreal, and we still have Edmonton in this year's version of the playoffs. So what happened yesterday? Well, you had the Carolina Hurricanes taking on the Ottawa Senators. The Hurricanes opened up at home at Lenovo Center in Raleigh. They made a statement early. This was a tight, physical game, as you might imagine, with one of the Tkachuk brothers involved. It was defensive. It was classic playoff hockey right from the puck drop. The Canes ended up winning 2-0. Frederik Andersen was sharp in goal. You'll recognize that name. Brady Tkachuk and Jordan Staal had a dust-up at the opening face-off, which tells you all you need to know about the atmosphere of that game. Ottawa's Tim Stützle, who had 83 points in the regular season, was very much neutralized by the 2-0 shutout that the Hurricanes laid on the Senators, so that gives them a 1-0 lead. I mean, Carolina probably is one of the favorites to come out of the East based on the fact that, if memory serves, the Florida Panthers didn't make the playoffs either. That's a bit surprising, being as that was the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Tampa Bay made it in. They're looking decent in the East. Philadelphia, they're looking pretty good in the East. So we'll see how those series turn out. will Pittsburgh bounce back? We'll get to that in a little bit as well. The Minnesota Wild took on the Dallas Stars out west in their game one. And this was a bit of a shocker, really. Minnesota absolutely blew the doors off of the Dallas Stars in this one. They ran up the score to 6-1. You don't expect that in a playoff game. You don't expect that from the Dallas Stars. Joel Eriksson Ek scored twice for the Wild. Matt Boldy, the American Olympic gold medalist from Milan, he was electric. Dallas's Mikko Rantanen, you would expect good things from him. He had a great regular season. However, he was held pretty much in check during this game. The Wild are a dangerous team, so I'm not saying they wouldn't win the series. You just wouldn't expect a 6-1 finish. So let's not underestimate them. We will see how this series continues going forward if Dallas can bounce back. Speaking of bounce back, we had the Battle of Pennsylvania. Philadelphia Flyers against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby at 38, playing in his 181st NHL playoff game after missing the playoffs last year, was on the ice for the Penguins, but Philadelphia pulled off a bit of an upset win in Game 1. The Flyers, on their side, have ended a 6-year playoff drought this season. Stuart Skinner, who started in goal for the Penguins, which that's kind of iffy if you ask me, was beaten in a tight one, so he was kind of Stuart Skinner playoff version from Edmonton the last 2 years. I mean, the series prediction market has shifted hard towards Philadelphia after this one. Playoffstatus.com now shows them at 72% chance to win the series. I get that, but you really gotta see Crosby lose 4 in a row or 4 games in a series before you're like, okay, we'll take that odds. Because Crosby, Malkin, Letang, them guys just been there, done it, and they're not willing to give it up. So this will be a fight. Crosby's story is worth looking at for a moment. He came back from a lower body injury that we all know happened in an awkward hit at the Olympics. Again, it was his 181st playoff game, tying him with Brad Marchand and others for 40th all-time. He is still a force to be reckoned with. He's Sidney Crosby after all. The Flyers clearly had a plan for him. They executed it in this game. We'll see if they can continue. So, day 2, we got some games. The Los Angeles Kings are taking on the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado being the President's Trophy winner with 121 points. That means that was the best in the regular season. They're favored to come out of the West. Now, let's see, Dallas, if they can bounce back, or Minnesota, might have something to say about that. I know the Kings are going to fight hard. Let's see. Vegas might have something to say about that in the West. All right, so let's get back to where we were here. So for Colorado, we're looking at obviously guys to watch out for. Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar. For the Avs, Makar leading the way. Colorado has been the betting favorite throughout pretty much the entire season. They're looking for their 4th cup in franchise history. Their home opener is happening today, and we'll see how that turns out. Then you got Tampa Bay taking on Montreal. That should be a good series. That Montreal team's pretty scrappy. They're one of the massive Canadian storylines behind Ottawa and Edmonton. Montreal have 48 wins this season. They made one of the most exciting surges in recent franchise history. They finished third in the Atlantic. Tampa Bay, one of the most decorated franchises in the last decade, is the favorite at 57-43 per prediction models. But this could be the series where this young Canadian team could prove why they belong at this level. Now, the next one, I had to fact check this because I almost didn't believe it. The Boston Bruins are taking on the Buffalo Sabres. Never expected to see that this year, especially from the beginning, especially them making the playoffs and the Leafs didn't. That's amazing. As we're saying here, this is the first playoff appearance for Buffalo since 2011. That's 15 years. All right, let's see. Rasmus Dahlin set a career high with 74 points. The city of Buffalo is electric right now, as you could imagine. If you remember back in the 90s, Dominic Hasek days, that building rocked in the playoffs. So I would expect it's going to be the same this year. The Bruins, as the wild card 1 seed, travel in for game 1. Somehow, people think Buffalo might be favored in this series. Hard to bet against Boston, maybe. But this is where time will tell, and that's what makes this such a fun ride. Now, out west again. And this is the late game today. But we have a brand new team in the playoffs, sort of. This is a team that moved from Phoenix, but the franchise where it is now is brand new. This is the Utah Mammoth, and they are traveling to Vegas to take on the Golden Knights. This is the late game today. Utah is pretty new to the playoff conversation. You have to go back to Phoenix and probably the early 2000s to find a Phoenix playoff series. Vegas goes into this series without their former head coach Bruce Cassidy, who was fired and replaced by John Tortorella. So that's a storyline to keep track of. This is the most intriguing series in the Western bracket. A new franchise against a new franchise, basically, although Vegas has been around a little bit now. And so, yeah, it's interesting. Quick overview of the other first round matchups. The Oilers host the Ducks on Monday. Anaheim is ending an 8-year playoff drought. Been a while for them. Connor McDavid and the Oilers, heavy favorites. The Rangers take on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And again, the Leafs are watching all of this from home. Ottawa making a deep run will not sit well with Toronto fans. But this is what it is. It's going to be an interesting spring. And so there you have it, guys. I mean, we're 40 minutes in here and we're just getting through the playoff pictures. All right, so let's switch gears yet again. And this is where we start to go, oh dear. What is wrong with the Blue Jays? And how should they fix it? We're going to have a hard conversation here. As much as this is Canada's team, we got to be honest. What we've seen through the first 3.5 weeks of this season, to put it nicely, is genuinely troubling. The Jays are 7-12. They've been swept by the Chicago White Sox, a team that only won 60 games last year. They lost to the Colorado Rockies, the worst team in all of baseball. They've won one series all year, and that was against one of the other worst teams in all of baseball, the Oakland Athletics, who is now probably got a better record than us this year. They got a 14-2 blowout by the Dodgers. They lost to Arizona and Milwaukee, although game 3 of Arizona's today, they might salvage a win there. They might get swept again. I mean, their injury situation is staggering, but that's not really an excuse because some of the other teams I've heard coming through, they have injury issues too. And let's be clear about this. Not everything that's wrong with the Blue Jays right now is injury related. Yeah, they've been brutally bit by the injury bug. They got 10 players or more on the injured list at this point. They have starters dropping like dominoes, then the position players start dropping like dominoes. But the on-field issues, the sloppy plays, the bad throws, the missed catches, the just mental lapses that we're not used to seeing from this team are just disturbing, troubling. The mindset, the lack of killer instinct that exists independently of who's healthy and who's not. So we're going to talk about both of these things. And somewhere in here is going to be the rant about Jeff Hoffman and John Schneider. I just can't wrap my head around this, but we'll get there. Problem number 1. The $500 million man, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He's trying too hard. He's swinging at balls he shouldn't be. He has the ABS system behind him. I haven't seen him use it all that much. He is hitting .323 with an .861 OPS. But he only has one home run through the first 18 games. 1. 7 RBIs for a player who hit 8 home runs in 18 playoff games during the playoffs, up to the World Series. He had 48 in his best season. He's one of the best hitters in baseball when he's right. But 1 home run through 3 weeks is not what this team signed up for. Now, sadly, part of that could be that he is just not protected like he used to be with a certain player that the Jays didn't even talk to who was a free agent in the offseason. The problem is getting worse simply because the lineup around him is not very supportive because they're all injured. With Springer in the leadoff spot, Addison Barger being Addison Barger, Alejandro Kirk providing at-bats around and behind him. That's what lineup protection's all about. Right now, the pitchers are working around Guerrero because they know that he is the only one they got to worry about. He's been walking more. That is good. I'll take the walks, his .427 OBP. But the power is what is troubling for him. And I'm not even going to say home runs here. We're used to a lot of doubles from Vladdy too. And he just really has to stop beating the balls into the ground and start getting those line drives that we're used to seeing. Hit the ball up the middle. Try and hit it over the center fielder's head or between, like to the right or the left of the center fielder. Gap to gap. That's what we're looking for from him. Just get it deep in the outfield the way we're used to seeing from you. Blue Jays Nation called it out perfectly this week. He has a 48 home run season under his belt, destroys baseballs in the playoffs, and then this version of Vladdy exists. The question is, what unlocks it? Well, Springer could be back by Friday, so when he's back, when Barger is healed up from his ankle injury, when there are legitimate home run hitters and just on-base monsters around him, in the order, his numbers, you will think, will normalize. The fix here needs to be patience and getting a healthy roster back. On the other side, you need that power to come around. Thing about it is, you got Nathan Lucas trying to play through vertigo. You got Dalton Varsho with knee injuries and back injuries right now. And so you just are in the weeds. Problem number 2, and we mentioned this a little bit. The lineup right now has no protection. Opposing teams obviously know that and just go right after guys. Jesus Sanchez is doing really well. Ernie Clement is doing Ernie Clement things. But you need the rest of the guys to step up. Jay's Journal ran a fascinating breakdown this week. The cleanup hitter, so whoever's batting fourth, is only slashing 197 with a 542 OPS. Likely anyone hitting in that spot, they're not even hitting their body weight. They have 18 strikeouts so far this young season. The 2-hole hitter, so that's the cleanup guys behind Vladdy. The 2-hole is in front of him. And that has been inconsistent this year as well. So when pitchers know that there's weak spots around Guerrero, they can work the edges. They can frustrate him into swinging at bad pitches. They'll give him a walk before pitching to him just to get to the weaker hitter so that no one's on base or it's just him. This is why we need Springer back. Beyond just his own production, it's why getting Kirk back matters after his thumb surgery. We need the run production from other parts of the top of the order, from lower down in the order. It's why Addison Barger matters, as he's someone who can get on base and put pressure on the defense. And right now the Jays lineup is kind of a one-man show with a bunch of understudies, because Dalton Varsho has never really shown up the way we need him to either, even before his setback. Now Miles Straw has been great, other than getting thrown out at second base yesterday, but we need health. We need to use the DH spot creatively. I don't think we really want Eloy Jimenez in our lineup. So saying he needs to be in the middle of the order just doesn't add up. Problem number 3. We've touched on it a little bit. Plate discipline, for whatever reason, last year to this year, has completely collapsed. We covered this a couple weeks ago, and it's still true. The Blue Jays' out-of-zone swing rate has spiked from 33.2, as we said, to 36.5 this season. Every regular hitter has seen their chase rate increase. Mr. Popkins, you need to get on that. And the guys between the lines need to get that down. With runners in scoring position, don't even get me started. When they start getting bases loaded with no one out and not scoring, it makes me want to tear out my hair. Simply because a simple bunt will get a run. A long fly ball deep into the outfield will score a run. When the bases are loaded and no one's out, you must score. There is no question about that. Every single time you must score. If you don't, there is a massive problem either in between the guys' ears that are hitting or in the coaching that doesn't call for the bunt. Looking at you, John Schneider. You just got an extension. Stop coaching this way. So this team has the worst slugging percentage in baseball with runners in scoring position. That's a problem. The most telling moment was, yet again, April 7th, Dodgers, bases loaded, 7th inning, nobody out. Jimenez flies out, Valenzuela strikes out, and Springer flies out. You cannot have that. Jimenez should be bunting. Valenzuela should be bunting. Springer, well, he could bunt, but swing away. If there's runs on the board, maybe he doesn't fly out. Instead, 0 runs. That inning is a microcosm of a much larger issue. It was basically showing you everything that's wrong with this lineup right now. There's impatience, there's free swinging, there's no 2-strike approach, which Bo Bichette was famous for. They didn't even talk to him. Hitting coach David Popkins had this team swinging with purpose and intent last year, and he better figure it out real quick. Because as much as you look like a hitting guru last year, you could be out on your butt before long if this doesn't turn around. They're swinging harder at hittable pitches, not swinging harder at everything. That's what they were doing last year. They have to get back to that somehow. Problem number 4. All these pitching injuries, and our bullpen is already getting overworked. Again, though, that's not just a Blue Jays only issue. Tyler Heineman, the backup catcher, has already pitched in 2 games. At one point, he had a lower ERA than one Brandon Little. It won't be long before his ERA is lower than one Jeff Hoffman. Again, Brandon Little. Inherited runners, all of them scored pretty much. Jeff Hoffman, here we go. Last night, Jeff Hoffman came in the game in the 8th inning. He loaded the bases, mostly with walks. 3 straight. I know you have to leave him in for 3 hitters. That's the rules. Why did he face a 4th? If he doesn't have it, he shouldn't be on the mound. And he clearly did not have it last night. John, you let Brandon Little run too long. You're doing it again with Jeff Hoffman. It needs to stop. Someone needs to show him videos like this one. Because you might say, what do I know? A lot more than you think, John. Just because this guy was a closer, he lost you the World Series last year by giving up home runs at the wrong time. He's not been consistent this year. He had a decent stretch at one point, but his first opportunity of the year, he blew the save. It happens way too often. The Blue Jays need to get a closer, a real closer. We need Jimmy Garcia back, and hopefully he can be a stopgap. Speaking of Jimmy Garcia, he's been throwing bullpen sessions in Dunedin. He's nearing a return potentially in a week or two. He was hitting 95 in his bullpens. He's always had good swing and miss. He'd be a big addition after 2 years to this bullpen. They gotta let their starters go deeper, especially Gausman and Cease. They just can't be pulling them in the fifth, sixth inning. They don't have, like, yes, they got Fisher, Fluharty, Varland, Rogers, to a degree Nance, but they got to go deeper, and John has to let them do so. I mean, Max pitched amazing last night, even with his tendonitis. Did they pull him too soon? You could argue that. And when you have so much injuries to your starting rotation, and I know, like, it's kind of like last year, they had the same issue with their starting rotation. It's just, you can't keep running your bullpen like this. Or you got to start moving arms in and out quicker like you were last year at times. The next problem is this team, John Schneider being the one where it starts, has seemed to have lost its identity. This is the biggest one. The Blue Jays of 2025 had elite defense. They had whatever's beyond elite in team chemistry, which they messed up by not bringing some guys back. They had a lineup that just contact and aggression, run, bunt, whatever they could do. But the core of that team, for the most part, is still here. But I think some of the major pieces, like a Bassett and a Bichette, are missing. Guys like Kazuma Okamoto aren't part of that yet. He's still finding his footing in a new city and a new country. The injuries are disrupting any sense of continuity this team could have had, and this team really doesn't look like itself right now. John Schneider knows it. He said after the White Sox sweep, "We've just got to find our identity." Well, John, it's been 3 weeks. You still haven't found it yet. When your own manager's saying that early in April, that's where you see a lot of the challenge. Is there optimism? This team was 16-20 last year and went to Game 7 of the World Series in the 11th inning. They've done it before. The injuries will hopefully even themselves out. You got guys like Bieber, Barrios, Kirk, Springer, Varsho, all coming back from injuries. Jimmy Garcia, hopefully. Trey Savage can figure in somewheres at this point. I don't want him on the Major League roster just yet. If those other two guys can slide in there. But all those guys coming back in May and June will be like a trade deadline before it ever happens. The lineup will find its rhythm, hopefully, when you get Springer and Barger back, when you get Vlad to heat up a little bit, as he tends to do in May and June. And we can turn this 7-12 into a real nice number by the end of the season. They just got to start winning series. They've lost 6 series in a row. I loved what Cito used to say. Win the series. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 2 out of 2. Whatever the case may be, just win the series. That should be your goal. You're not going to win every game, so be realistic. You're not going 162 for 162. That's never happened, never will. But if you can win the series every time, or almost every time, string together at-bats, string together series wins. It doesn't have to happen in the first 2 games of a series if it's a 3-gamer. You could win 1 and 3. Who cares? Just win the series. I love that approach. And that's the way the Jays need to approach every single day. And I know the approach is let's win every game. But you got to go out and do it. All right. Before we close out, we got to talk some injuries. There are some updates that we can probably give you. So, George Springer. This is one of the most recent ones, but as of today, Springer has been placed on the injured list. He's got a big toe fracture. I mean, we've talked about it. Eloy Jimenez came in to replace him. There's no firm timeline on his return, but I did hear throughout the week he's been swinging in the cage. He's set to start running, I think, on Tuesday. And they said he could potentially return. Let me grab a calendar here. They said Friday, but what date is Friday? So the 24th, maybe? Or they give him another week, maybe by May 1st? We shall see. So Springer's probably sooner than later. He is looking pretty good from what they said. It's just not quite there yet. Alejandro Kirk, he had his left thumb fracture surgery on April 7th. They inserted a screw and they mid to late May, 6 weeks for recovery. Till then, we know Brandon Valenzuela has been with the team and he is the backup catcher for now. Trey Yesavage, right shoulder impingement, was on the 15-day DL. He's been on rehab assignment, so they have 30 days with him. He threw a decent outing this week. We're looking more at how the pitches are moving, not the actual outcome of runs scored versus not. Per ESPN, he could make, and week Tuesday or Wednesday, he's got one more rehab start coming. And then we'll see after that. And he could be activated soon. And this is, for some people, one of the more anticipated returns after the World Series that he had. Can he get back to that? Then you have Jose Barrios. His right elbow stress fracture has him on the 60-day. They're saying, well, he already has begun a rehab assignment. His first one didn't go that well, 2 2/3 with 5 earned runs. But it was more about getting out there, getting the feel of it. He was a bit of rust, so get that off a little bit. He wasn't looking like he did in spring. And we're looking June realistically for him, just simply because 60 days is at least 2 months. His opt-out after this season makes this story even more important for him, especially to come back looking like the almost invincible guy he was up until August of last year. You have Shane Bieber on the 15-day DL, right elbow inflammation. He threw off the mound for the 3rd time as of yesterday in the build-up. They're looking to late May as a return target for him. Remember, he's not pitched a full season coming off his Tommy John. He came in around August last year. So just keep that in mind. Then you got Addison Barger, left ankle sprain. The latest from John Schneider is that Barger remains shut down until at least Monday. And we'll see how he does after that. So hopefully he'll be back in the next week to 10 days. He is making progress. I don't even want to say this name, but Anthony Santander. We're looking probably September with him. I don't care. I don't want him on this team. Trade him, please. He's been useless ever since he got here, even before he got injured. You have Cody Ponce. He had his right ACL sprain. Consequently, he had surgery on the 15th. And we're looking at spring training with him. Bowden Francis, you're looking at next season with him. He had Tommy John. And Max Scherzer is not on the IL, but he is injured. He played very well last night with that tendonitis. He's not looking to miss time. He's talked about being able to manage the issue. And as was the case last night, you could see he's managing it very well. Jimmy Garcia, he had right elbow surgery. He's been throwing side sessions, and hopefully he'll be back soon. Then you have Ricky Tiedemann, left elbow soreness. He's on Buffalo's injured list. There's no structural damage, thank goodness. He has had Tommy John in the past. He's cleared to begin throwing week to week. Still a potential useful arm in the second half. Then you have Varsho, knee discomfort. He exited Friday night's game. He had an MRI. We don't have full results as yet. This is one of the latest concerns. Miles Straw played last night's game in center field. If Varsho has to go on the IL, that's another huge blow to an already bare lineup. Bottom line on the injury picture, things are bad right now, but there is a cavalry just over the hill in Savage, Garcia possibly, Kirk, Bieber, Barrios. When this rotation gets healthy, it's gonna be dang scary. But we gotta weather the storm. We gotta try and be positive. And let's do some of those things we talked about that they can do between now and then. All right. That's a wrap on today's episode. We are a little over an hour here. True North Sports Talk. Grab that as a hashtag. Jump into the comments. Let us know what you think needs to happen, what you think about Jeff Hoffman and John Schneider and this whole deal. Let us know what you think about the playoff pictures we've been talking about at the beginning of the show. What a day of sports. We covered so much from day one of the NBA playoffs, day one of the NHL playoffs. Let us know what you're watching, what you're hoping for, what you're looking for. We got a real honest, hard look at our Blue Jays. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think should happen? And do you think this team can get creative to stop the bleeding? It's going to be a big week. Please subscribe to the channel, guys. That's how we keep bringing you this content. And yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know what you want to see in future episodes. And until then, we'll see you next time.